The democracy is that even gives us the privilege to exercise our rights in civil disobedience when we are so dissatisfied with government. But here's the case. I mean, those times that out of the news, there was some group of people called Delta Force, some macho men just molesting people. Who will have the courage to be critical? Who? So we can't blame Ghanaians not to be that critical when it seems those in power has built this kind of fort against themselves, engaging all sort of instruments that function against the people not to exercise their rights as per constitution, as per the provisions of democracy. So I don't think it's fair to say Ghanaians are not critical enough. There is a mechanism to stop them from being critical. That's what the hot seat thinks it is.
Well, I didn't say Ghanaians are not critical enough. I'm saying the literature says that increasingly we are rather.
I'm not saying you said so, but you asked the question: have we been critical enough? Yes.
Because that is. See, we all have a role to play.
I'm only answering your question that we may not be critical enough because of the fear that people entertain to raise a genuine critical disposition.
But we all have a role to play. So if you are saying that there is Delta Force or there is it or that, and so you will not play your role, then we'll be where we are. That's the point I'm making, because politicians are here. We all have a role to play to get in the Ghana we want.
Agreed.
So if you say that there is some kind of force and all that, the point is that we all have a role to play.
Agreed. And we have a role to play. And here is the case that I am being scared from playing my role, which is to be critical, to raise hand to say, no, why is my district not developing? Why is the road not being built? Oh, okay, we think there's a corruption that has gone on here. Why is this person getting the contract? Why is this person alone having all the contracts and never delivering? I was going to mention the sanitation in Accra is questionable. The floods in Accra is questionable. But if we go into the system, the history, the information is available, all those contracts have been awarded at some point. But if Ghanaians should stand to begin to question, the next thing that happens is that you're silenced by some means. So being critical is not like Ghanaians cannot be critical. But it seems like this, let me put it this way, this imaginary provision that stops us from being critical. I'm a Ghanaian, and being critical is one of the things we are good at doing. We argue among ourselves from time to time, but when it comes to governance, delivering and not delivering, and we haven't the rights to question, it seems that it's being taken away from us. And I will move on from that point and say this. You raise the concept of branding, which if we look at it in corporate product, you telling me you make the milk looking so nice and beautiful with some quotation, deliciously spicy, whatever it is. I expect that when I go into the container, it should be delicious and be spicy. But I get in a container, it doesn't feel delicious, neither is it spicy. So you've branded to deceive me. Haven't read your project so far. Yes, you are on point as far as those concepts are concerned. But as it stands now, the notion, the common knowledge among us Ghanaians is that we are being played upon. Branding is brought to us. We will do this. We will do that. This is what we can do. This is our ideology. This is our whatever book. Okay? And then when we say, yeah, that's the guy. These are the people. Boom, 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 boom. We give it to them. And they get in there. Like you said, no feedback to the people. What the challenge is. What is the realities on the grounds. The only thing is you are being stopped from being questioning. Now, why is it so? What is the process to giving you a feedback for it to be what it should be in a nutshell? But you go to the shop is closed with military men standing at the door to say, listen, Shop is closed. Goods are sold. Take it as is. Or shut up.
Is that really the scenario in Ghana?
That is the common knowledge among us Ghanaians, that politicians plays on our intelligence. Not only that, you see, one thing that I don't know, I've not finished reading your project, but it seems that there are other lines that affect our democracy. Where you come from, the language you speak, also contribute to the choice of people that manage. Not purely be based on brand, not purely based on brand. Okay, you've come from Volta region, you've come from the northern region, you come from Accra. Therefore, the vote is purely based on the fact that you identify with a group of people, not purely because your brand can deliver. I'm not sure if you have covered that aspect of it, but that's one of the things that we on the hot seat thinks is also a contributing factor to the branding being distorted along the line. Because we expect the brand to be developed and delivered, but delivery seems to be a problem.
So my research looked at the designing of the promise and delivery.
Yes.
And the reason why it falls under branding is that delivery is a post-election activity that keeps political consumers. I always use political consumers as opposed to voters, because there are some people, we all consume politics, but it's not everybody that votes, okay? So political consumers get into close contact with you based on the promises you made and what you've been able to deliver. The delivery, the design bit is where you engage with the citizenry. Yep. You look at the country, our states now, and what you think it needs to be done, and you make those promises. That makes us believe that, okay, let's vote party A, B, C, and its candidates into power. Whilst in government, literature says that making a promise is equally important as keeping the promise. It is when you do that you become valuable to the political consumer. And so you become positioned in their minds, and that is what we call branding.
Yeah.
Well, during my MPhil, I focused on political branding and voter choice, and it was established that political parties in Ghana are brands, no doubt about that. But some of their behavior does not suggest that they are, they do, it's not all of them, or some of their behavior doesn't really portray a strong brand. Because a strong brand, for example, will think of delivery proud to making the promise, and that is well covered in my thesis. You think of delivery proud to making the promise. Sometimes when you look at the promises that these politicians make, it suggests that, no, they've not thought of delivery. But a good brand knows that if I make a promise and I do not keep the promise, the brand equity, the overall value of the party and its candidates will decrease going into subsequent election. So from the literature and from political marketing perspective, I will say a good brand is the one that thinks about delivery proud to making the promise. So if politicians are making promises, knee-jerk promises, and they come into government, they are not able to keep their promises. They'll struggle when you go into election. And there have been times that I've sat down to question why some political parties have made some promises that you could see that is not realistic. And that tells me that if they are aware of what will happen to the value of their brand, going into subsequent election, they'll be mindful of what they promise. Over-promising suggests that you are not conscious of your brand and the value that you carry. So if politicians are making promises, they don't keep their promises and they come. It is the reason why they struggle going into elections. If not, if you're a brand, you've been able to keep your promises, that will speak for you, because literature says that political consumers will always evaluate what you've been able to do, and they'll examine how what you've done have impacted their life and vote for you. Although as a developing democracy, and when you look at our election, you will see that sometimes we do not vote because we do not vote on this issue. We are not very realistic. We do not examine the issues and vote on those bases. And then you
Exactly.
see that sometimes ethnicity and all that. But
I was
to
going
be
to go
honest,
to that.
ethnicity, religion, and all that are core part of developing, characteristics of developing democracy in the literature. So it's not strange to see that. But by now, we should be moving towards consolidating our democracy. And that is why I think that as political consumers, we need to be mindful of what these politicians are doing. And we should be critical enough. We should examine or evaluate them going into election and make sure that we vote for the party that has demonstrated that they are competent enough to keep to their promise.
Actually, thank you for that. I was going to raise that when you talk about the branding and delivery, and when you don't deliver, the consumers should be able to make a different choice of a different brand. But that is not what entirely happens in Ghana, as you rightly identified.
Do not forget, we have just two major political parties.
Yes.
But you go to countries like New Zealand, where you have Labour, National, ACT, Green, a lot of political parties. There's a lot to choose from. Sometimes I feel that honestly, in Ghana, we are restricted. We have just two, although the other political parties, since 1992 to date, it's always been either NDC or NPP, isn't it? So we don't have variety to choose from.
We have varieties, but people are not patronizing them.
Well, as it stands now, data shows clearly that it's been between NDC and NPP since 1992. So,
but there are other political parties.
Yes, but what has been their performance? What has been their performance? So we don't have a lot to choose from, okay? We don't have a lot to choose from. That's why I cited the example of New Zealand. You have Labour, you have National, you have Green, you have ACT. And these are vibrant political parties. So you cannot just come and make promises and go and think that after 4 years, this party will be voted out anyway and will come. So if you find yourself in a competitive political environment like New Zealand, you'll be mindful of what you promise. And in government, you'll be conscious of delivering what you promise because you know the elections are competitive.
Rightly so. But again, as you rightly said a few minutes ago, the positioning of tribe, groups, religion, language seems to drive association more than the brand itself, i.e., what is on offer. As you said, that beclouds our choice, our decision. We are not critical of what is being presented to us to have a leveled comparison as to what is, and also to look back and see over the years when this group of people promise, how do they perform against the other group? You say, when they promise, how do they perform? And again, these other political parties, it wasn't easy for you to have your PhD to be called Dr. Manyo. No, it took a lot of work. The question is, these other political parties that seems not to be here or there, how much are they doing through patriotism, commitment, desire to see the betterment of country? How much are they doing? You only hear of them when it's coming to election time, some dancing and dancing and dancing here and there, and then you want to win. You don't win things like that. A lot of work is required. And like you said, since 1992, what has these other political parties, what have they been doing to bring the competition to these two big political parties, in quote? Because those two political parties, in my head, there's two areas that is said to be the stronghold of these political parties. But you go there and see what they have done as in development-wise.
Well, I think that is the reason why some of us have taken the pain to study political marketing. And it's in their interest to consult very well to make sure that there is somebody that, it's important to get a strategist. It's not about making noise. It's not about shouting. Building a political brand is crucial in election. So if the small political parties really want to build a formidable political party and compete with the NDC and the NPP, I think that there's a lot more that they have to do. But the point is this, is the reason why we have a lot of people now pursuing political marketing. They should consult.
Beautiful. Based on that, I would say the research work in question is designing and delivering the political brand promise in developing democracies. The case of Ghana. That is what Dr. Manyo has extensively researched and written on. Is out there on the internet. Type it, Dr. Joyce Manyo, and you will see it and read and see what is there. It's good for us all to become knowledgeable in this, because politics is not exclusive preserve of some. It's for all of us. And the more we get involved, the more competitive it becomes. Hopefully, the more refined and defined it becomes. That's what the hot seat will say. But as this journey to PhD is big, we can't finish it all today. All right. So I have a few more things to ask, and we should be out of there. But we will bring you back again when we are done reading this very big book, 336 pages. We will bring you back and we will have this conversation again. But before we go, looking at what you have engaged yourself with, learning about developed democracies and comparing to the developing democracies, Ghana being the case study, what do you see Ghana's democracy to be like? Not based on what you've written, but how it is practiced at the moment. Do you think it will fit your project with time?
I think that is a hard one, but let's see.
The hot seat is a hot place. So we add hard questions.
So let's see. Since 1992 that Ghana embraced democracy, by now we should be consolidating our democracy, but unfortunately it doesn't look so. But let me say that it's not as if we are not doing well, because if you read the literature on developing democracies, and in terms of the practice of politics, we've done well to some extent. Because when you compare to other countries, yes, we have flaws, we have issues that we need to deal with, but we've done well. And if you're talking about my thesis in Ghana's democracy, I focused on political branding, political marketing and branding in specific. And all the arguments I was making in is that, look, we need to practice politics in the right way. Let's use the right principles. Let's use the right tools and methodologies so that we move from where we are now towards consolidating our democracy. So I'll say, if only politicians are reading, if they are engaging scholars, if they are consulting and putting the right methodologies in place in terms of their practice of politics, we'll get there.
We pray and hope so. Because as it stands and as it is among Ghanaians, most, if not all, only comes in to seek our indulgence, our approval of them being the right people, only to go in there and enrich themselves, because we've seen how some of them became billionaires overnight. And it begs question, in as much as we can rightly point how they have become, because to be a billionaire is not 4 years thing, it's a journey. But some individuals, you can tell who they have been before they get into politics, either as an MP or a minister or something, but suddenly they have become so loaded. Oh God Almighty, beautiful. They have become so loaded. The hot seat is saying this not for your comment, but we will go to this point because we want to wrap up. Like I said, it's a big long journey. We can't finish this. We will bring you back as we promised on the hot seat. When we promise, we deliver. We will bring Dr. Manyo back to give us some aspect. Before I go to the next thing that I want to say, as we are speaking, it seems to me like there's some aspects of our developing democracies that also needs to be looked at, apart from branding, developing the brand and delivering. I feel like there's a need for us also to get an aspect that actually focuses on the people's nurturing, to understand how to engage the development and the delivery, so that as you talk about the fact, are we critical enough? Should that be in our education system where we are taught how to be critical with government so they deliver? What do you think? Because we are talking about the manufacturer, but we are not talking about what are the rights of the person who buys this thing and may or may not be satisfied with it. Should there be some sort of specific training for them to say that when you get a brand, let's say a constituency is not satisfied with their MP, there should be this content that makes them to understand that it is not about the language the person speaks. It's not about who born the person, which area they comes from. It's about the fact that you are still driving on a broken road. It's about the fact that over 1,000 people have been killed on this road because of the road that has not been constructed. And in some cases, they've been awarded as contracts, but somehow they never got delivered. Do you think, how do we get the populace to understand that?
I think you're now delving into public education and creating awareness of what they should expect. Yes. But I mean, if you're talking about that, it's part of political marketing. Anybody that pursues that course will know or will read about how we need to get the people well informed. But I'm saying, if you're talking about the whole country, letting people understand that you don't need to take money from them, rather vote for the right person, that falls under public education. And so with that one,
should it be in our education?
Well, that's about the curriculum.
I don't think there's anything in our curriculum at the moment that basically just teaches even the younger ones to understand that we are in a democracy. We have people that represent you, and this is your expectation, and you yourself should even be inspired as a patriotic individual looking forward to do something for your community, not only as a president or as a minister, as an MP, but as an individual. Just like the way you said rightly here that one of what challenges you to study this or to research on it is some questions that arise in your mind about how our politics is moving.
True.
So if you on your single-handedly thinking that way, as you will know by now, some people need exposure for them to become aware, knowledge. So this is why I'm asking the question, should our education system be extensively teaching politics, just basic politics, for the understanding of the people? Because it seems the people don't understand. This is why they're going to vote, because he speaks Ewe. This one is going to vote because he speaks Dagomba. But the truth is, this Dagomba speaking guy or this Ashanti speaking guy, he's not the guy.
Well, I think all this borders on public education awareness.
So how do we get it solved? How do we fix that question?
So that one, I don't know, but I cannot say that we should have it in the education. In any case, is it everybody that even go to school?
But mass majority goes to school. It's not everybody that goes to school. But now we practice free education.
I think civil societies are doing a good job, and getting into election, what it is that we need to go out and create awareness to let people know that, listen, vote for the right people, so that you get them come to do what is expected. So you and I get the best from this democracy that we have embraced. As we having it in a curriculum to make sure everybody understands it and all that. Even is it everybody that even goes to school, and at what level, basic, secondary, or tertiary? Well, honestly, I'm not sure about that, but I think that it's interesting. You have a lot of people whose interest in political marketing has gone up, and my professor tells me how a number of people are writing to where they want to do political marketing. I'm confident that we'll get there.
Okay. Before we go, on the hot seat, we had a program that we talked about before. We were being very critical with the fact that many are those that have PhDs, masters, and boast of it. I have PhD, I have masters, and they have nothing to show for it. You, who are you? You're laughing now.
I wonder how
what we want to ask here is that
somebody who spent 4 years doing a PhD or 2 years doing masters and will have nothing to show.
And what I mean, having nothing to show for it in the capacity of country building, our economy, the instruments of ministry. It seems like that's what the hot seat thinks like. We feel to take pride in the piece of paper that say, I have degree, I have masters, and you're satisfied with it, and not really. Yes, in your case, the question is going to be this: what are you going to do differently with this knowledge? Of course, we do know that you work with some
Civil society.
civil society. Before you tell us what you're going to do, this civil society, how are they impacting our democracy? Just in summary.
Significantly, they are impacting, because I've been working with this institute since December last year. And when I look at the kind of research we do, the kind of contribution that we do, analysis, and how they form a coalition, and almost every issue they create awareness, they criticize the government, they make proposals, they make suggestions. I think civil societies are doing very well. The point is this: they are not government institutions, they are not government. They can only suggest, they can only create awareness. But the power to make the change does not lie in their hands. So they cannot go to the presidency and say, do this. They can only let the president or leaders know these are the issues, this policy decision you are taking, these are the consequences, these are the effects. And so we recommend that you rethink your decision. But the point is that they are not government institutions, they are not politicians, and so they cannot take the final decision. But if you ask me, they are doing significantly well. They are playing significant role in Ghana's democracy. Yeah.
If this level of significance you're talking about, and yet we Ghanaians are still shouting from the mountaintop with dissatisfaction, and it's simply put, the Hot is saying our leadership don't listen. That's how we put it, because you have confidence in your research, you have confidence in your results, in your projections and advice. Yet we are still not satisfied, because I'm believing what you're saying, that your work is intensive and very formidable to begin to change the trajectory of our democracy in a way that the people can feel it, can dance to it, if I'm to put it that way. You wouldn't say what you're saying if you don't believe in your work. So let's accept that, not conclusively, agree with you that your work is extensive, and if given attention to completely, because you rightly said you can only propose, you can only advise, you can only say, look, have a look at this, this is what we think, and we expect them to deliver. So the host is saying that we are still not satisfied with government, not only the current sitting government. Since 1992, we have not been satisfied at any point. Not because Ghanaians are disgruntled and very critical and angry. No. The fact remains, some roads have been good before 1992. Now they are broken. At least the one that everybody calls upon, the Temamoto Way. I drove on it myself. I nearly somersault because I didn't know there was a manhole there. Thank God the road I was driving was solid. If it was one tuk-tuk, I wouldn't be interviewing you here today.
Well,
I would have been singing Hallelujah chorus with Jesus.
Well, I believe that there's a reason, in my personal opinion, I think there's a reason for which we go to the polls every 4 years.
Yeah.
The reason is that if you think that leaders are not listening, they are not doing the right thing, change them.
Ghanaians, over to you. From the experts who has extensively researched to say that when a brand is offered you, there is a developing aspect of it, and there's a need for a delivery of that promise. And if for 4 years I've come and I promise you I'm going to build skyscrapers from here to heaven, and come the end of the 4th year, I've not even laid a block, vote me out. Simply put, that's all that is being said. So based on that, and as I've promised, we'll come back to you again, because there's so much to be talked about. But we are thankful that you are here. And your final words to Ghanaians, both in the aspect of young ones who may be facing some sort of challenges and using the challenge as an excuse not to persevere, as well as the political scene, and generally to the populace, your final words as we sign off.
Well, in terms of advising or encouraging the youth, I'll say that failing is part of the process. I said that in the beginning. So don't give up on your dreams. And particularly to women, as I mentioned, throughout my master's and PhD, I was having babies along. So don't give up. Keep pushing, and you get there. In terms of politics, I read political marketing and I'm passionate about the practice of politics. Either than that, I may have studied political parties in New Zealand and I would have landed a very big job and wouldn't come to Ghana. But we are all here to serve. So I'll say that as political consumers, let's be vigilant and we need to be critical. Don't let anybody buy your vote because that is the power you have. If people are not keeping or politicians are not keeping to their promise, do not take whatever gift they give you. Vote them out and go for the best.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mrs. Manyo, which I prefer to call it Mrs. Manyo, PhD. Thank you for coming, daring to come on the hot seat. I hope I've not been too hot for you, and you will honor our invite the next time around when I'm done reading these 336 pages of your write-ups, which I'm beginning to enjoy it. That's why I've grabbed the summary of what I think you're writing. But thank you. And to all those of you who have listened to it, I've read it and I'll read it again. The thesis is, or the project work at junior levels, they'll say project work, but the thesis here is designing and delivering the political brand promise in developing democracies. The case of Ghana. Till we come your way, God bless Mother Ghana, long live the Fourth Republic, and don't give up. We will get there collectively. See you in our next episode, and we look forward to bringing Dr. Manyo back on the scene. God bless you all.